And from those of you who may, somebody in my life who was my father, and I don't know how many of you remember what day is today, but today's the day that Medgar Evers was shot. And I was 7. And I remember the next morning, my father in tears. And my dad never cried. He was a Marine before he had 5 girls. And I said, you know, Daddy, what is wrong? And he said, we're living in a really bad time, that people get shot or killed for just doing the right thing. And we had a morning conversation about how you had to always stand up, and you had to always do the right thing. And you had to follow the law. As a Marine, you know, you gotta follow the law. And you gotta learn over and over again. We heard, you know, a great life is based on privilege and responsibility, and you have to be the best person you can be, and you have to learn the most you can. So I believe my dad. And when Roe v. Wade happened, when I was graduating from high school in '74, I have to say, I was one of those crazy people who went to medical school at 18. So I became a doctor kind of before I became an adult, and I heard stories about pre-Roe v. Wade, but never really had to see it. And I really believed in my heart of hearts, as a bedside clinician, this was an issue we didn't have to deal with anymore. And I, until I became commissioner, really thought this was a non-issue, and I was working on health equity, and I was working on children's rights. And I became commissioner and said, whoa, I thought we finished this argument, you know, 30 years ago, and here we are again. So for me, it's an issue of good government. It's an issue of no one ever stepping their bounds in their roles. Whether you're the Attorney General, who I can tell you is not my best friend. He doesn't invite me to any of his events. But, you know, none of us, regardless of what our roles are, whether it's a role in government or outside of government, have the right to get in the way of legal procedures in our country. There is no place for people to put their own individual ideologies on others and then to use the excuse to say it's because they're principled. We're all principled, but we also adhere to ethics, and we should be adhering to law. So I'm going to leave you all, because I ask everybody every single time for an ask. I think one of the things that you heard when Mr. Wolf spoke so eloquently is I had no plans when I stepped down. I just knew that I could not stay in an environment where I couldn't ethically be part of it. But what it did do is those 250,000 healthcare professionals who knew me around the state as a pen pal come up to me every time they see me and say thank you. And what I need each one of you to do is to remind them that just saying thank you to me is only the start. The medical community stepped away from the issue of women's rights and abortions because they believed it was over. And so it's important when you go to see your dentist, when you go to see your doctor, when you go to talk to your neighbor who's a nurse, to say, we are really on the precipice of falling way back in this state. And this is not, it's bigger than just talking about abortion itself. It is a woman's right to choose her health. It is not just a woman's right to choose her health, but it becomes a bigger issue of health equity. It becomes an issue of women being able to have leadership roles across the country. And so I need you to talk to those healthcare providers. And I will leave you with the best thing that happened to me today is on the way up here, there's a group called Medical Students for Choice, and I'm now like their dorm mother. And for the first time, they have male medical students for choice. And now they've started a new group, which I love. It's called the LGBT Medical Students for Choice. So I'm not sure how many groups we're going to get here, but they're really getting that issue of that as a physician. This is a fundamental issue that they need to be involved in because it is truly an issue of equity for all. So I encourage you to talk to those young healthcare professionals. Talk to your doctors and nurses. Tell them they need to vote. Tell them they need to think about social issues. And make sure they stay and get involved. Because I think I would leave, wouldn't you say, Trina, this is the first year where MSV, which is the Medical Society of Virginia, finally really stood up and said, we're not going to do this anymore. I was horrified that they didn't do it until this year. I mean, this is a legal procedure in our state. And so we need to keep pushing the medical profession to understand this is in their bailiwick. They need to be engaged and involved. So someday, I hope I can be as wonderful as your mom. I've got hopefully 30 or 40 more years to try. But right now, I'm incredibly honored. When I started medical school, I never thought I would be getting awards like this or for political courage. But I'm blessed to be able to be surrounded by such wonderful people who keep pushing me to try and be better than I can be every day. So thank you very much.